Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming out today. Go ahead and call Public Facilities and Safety Committee for September 25th to order. If you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Can I have an approval for the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Any objection?
No.
The agenda will be approved, and we'll move right into citizens' comments. We have one, Ms. Jenkins. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic.
Good. Members of committee, council, and staff, my name is Alana Jenkins, and I'm here to brief you on Sea Islands Heritage Academy, a year-round charter school serving 6th and 7th graders in the next year and growing to a school of 6th to 12th grade, all rooted in Gullah Geechee culture, to be located on St. Helena Island. First and foremost, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for to allow me to speak on this esteemed council today. It is a privilege to stand before you and share some of the significant developments regarding Sea Island Heritage Academy, a school and project that embodies the values, traditions of our scholars and our community. In May 2023, Sea Islands Heritage Academy received formal approval from the South Carolina Public Charter School District, marking a monumentous achievement for our community. In joining the ranks of high-performing charter schools within this public institution, we have embarked on a journey that upholds the core principles of quality education for all of our children. Our success has been made possible through the generous support totaling $1.3 million of philanthropic contributions, primarily Coastal Community Foundation. Their support and commitment to our cause had laid the foundation for a brighter future for our scholars, one that is firmly rooted in principles of fiscal responsibility and community partnership. In addition to this support, we are honored to have received seed funding from the Charter School Growth Fund, backed by the Walton Family Foundation. This funding reflects our dedication to sound financial stewardship and our commitment to investing in the educational aspirations of our scholars. Furthermore, we're proud to announce that Sea Island Heritage Academy has secured funding from New Schools Venture Fund, an organization renowned for its dedication in innovative school models. This accomplishment of funding was significant and recognized our commitment to providing an innovative, quality education that prepares our scholars for the challenges of a rapidly changing world while still honoring the traditions in the Sea Islands. To steer this important initiative, I have been privileged to assume the role of Executive Director of Sea Island Heritage Academy. We are actively seeking qualified individuals to join our team in leadership positions, and our career page is open for applications. As we move forward, we are diligently exploring potential facilities options in the Corners community of St. Helena Island in partnership with Building Hope, a nonprofit that has been responsible for financing and backing over 273 charter schools nationally. I look forward to providing council with regular updates on our progress, and I will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jenkins, do y'all have a website we could put out there for everyone?
Yes, it is Sea Islands with an S, heritageacademy.org.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to do public comment, even that didn't have a chance to sign up? With that, we will close that portion of our agenda and move on to an update from the Assistant County Administrator, Jared. I will go ahead and let you guys know the next 2 or 3 items. They're going to be a little lengthy, a lot of information, but it is big progress for the county, so.
Thank you for that. Yeah, good segue. A busy meeting today, but that means we've been busy doing a lot of good things. So a couple of things just to update committee and council and really the public on. A lot of these have been updated. John had sent out a 2-week report to you guys. So some of these are overview, but just to let the public know as well. So transportation, a couple things, SC 170, that project is underway as far as signed contract with the contractor. They're given a notice to proceed in October. October 23rd will be their notice to proceed. They have a year to complete all the work. Their intent is to start work on SC 462 and Argent Boulevard on the signal work initially before the end of the year. And then a lot of the work obviously is down at 278 and 170 near the interchange, which has a lot of paving work. And can't do a lot of paving work during the cold winter months. So there'll be a delay, or not a delay, a pause in the project. You'll see not a lot going on during the winter months, and then they'll kick off in the spring. So just to update on what's going on there. Also, another one, Windmill Harbor Signal, that project's under construction right now. They hope to put the project or the flashing lights up in the coming week, and then that'll be for about a week or so, that'll be in flash mode. And then the first week in October, that signal should be fully implemented and open. So fingers crossed that we're doing a good job and making that safer and better for all that are passing through there. Windmill Harbor, I think, will be much appreciated. Reimagine Rebo, you guys have heard of the final meeting that we had on that on September 14th. Our next steps are coordinating with the town of Port Royal and City of Beaufort, as well as Beaufort Memorial Hospital and some key stakeholders. The goal is that we get the plans modified and come up with a final draft of what was presented with the modifications and any comments that the town and county or town and city may have as well. And then we'll have a final report, which hopefully everybody at that point will adopt, and then we can move the project from plan to start engineering design on it. So that's the intent. Public Works, we got some boat landing work that's going on. So All Joy Boat Landing Repair is currently out to bid. We should have bids back at the end of the month, so coming up. And solid waste and recycling, one key thing is we have a consultant doing a audit of operations. We've done this a couple years back. We're doing another one now that we've got the decal system implemented. So they're going to tell us some of the things that they see, good, bad, and things for improvement. So that should be coming back in the next month or two as well. And as mentioned, I falsely mentioned it last time as far as the timing of the 5K out at Beaufort Executive. So you've had an extra month to start running and walking and getting ready for that race. But that will be held on October 28th out there on the airport. The runway will be shut down for a period of time for the race. There's also a Touch a Truck event associated with that. So kids and all the public's invited to attend. That is all I have, and I think that Hank has a few updates on his end as well.
Jared, before you guys swap out, can I ask you one question? The
Sure.
Windmill Harbor Light, are they planning to do any type of I guess the word, a warning system because of the bend like we kind of have on Buck Island Road coming around? They have that extra light to the left, or coming towards Hilton Head Christian Academy, how they have the signs to
Yeah.
let you know, prepare to stop? So
Not
the bend in there?
right now. That's a good point. We'll keep a lookout. So this is being opened. We'll keep tabs on it. So if that's a concern, we'll definitely look and adjust and adapt. But that's not part of the plan right now, but we will take a look at it if needed.
I have
Yep.
a question.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
light at Squire Pope, is it gonna be consistent with the one at Windmill Harbor? Because I went through there the other day and I
Yep.
thought, oh, no.
Yep.
This may not
So
work.
so if you haven't heard, what Town of Hilton Head's been working on is an adaptive
Oh,
system. So an adaptive system, normally our systems they have a timing and they're set timing, and then they're partially adaptive in the fact that if you pull up and there's a sensor there, it'll know that there's a car or not a car. So that's traditional.
Okay.
Now, the new adaptive system it takes it one step further. So those Squire Pope and Spanish Wells both have that system. This
Oh,
will
okay.
have the same
Okay,
system
yeah.
on that, so adaptive system. So
So
they'll-
it should flow?
it should flow. The short answer is yes, it should
Okay.
flow. If it doesn't flow, give us a call
You're gonna-
and we'll
okay.
check it out.
Well, I don't live on the island. This one does. so. Huh?
All right.
Thanks, Jared.
All right, good afternoon. I was just going to update you guys on some CIP projects. Some of them come in that biweekly report that Jared mentioned, but I figured we'd run through a few just to kind of give some updates. But I'll start with one that's not. We've dealt with it over several meetings. With the Tufusky Island Ferry, they're nearing final permit for the construction down on Helmsman Way. The contract extension was issued to Hague, and we did put out the new RFP last Wednesday. We have bids due in late October, October 20th, and we've already spoken to a couple interested parties. We have a pre-proposal. I'm using this for a little marketing for those that might want to bid. We have a pre-proposal meeting this Thursday at 2 o'clock. If you go to our website, you can find out how to get to that Zoom link. Port Royal Library is going to come to you today. We're going to recommend award to actually do this project. We'll get more about that in just a second. Borders registration expansion is also underway and scheduled to wrap up in January. The Charles Lynn Brown Community Center, all the interior improvements have been completed, and we added to that project to help with the drainage from the interior gutter system and how to get that water away from the building. There's two. The back side is a bigger project with concrete included. The front side we're doing in-house with Public Works to get that water, again, away from that building that we just improved. Burton Wells pickleball courts are starting to look really good. Final epoxy layers are going on. We should have a ribbon cutting in October.
Wow.
Southside Park, a similar footprint to the pickleball courts in Burton Wells, but it will be half pickleball and half basketball court. Those plans are in review with the city, and the project is out for bid concurrently, so when the permit is issued, we can start. Corson Tate Ballpark lighting, new Musco lights that you guys voted on several months ago. They've been installed. The only thing now is for the electricians to come in and connect them and get them rolling. I can personally attest to coaching my kids' baseball team, and they look really impressive. Bruce Edgerly bathrooms underway, and that should be completed in November. They picked out colors, trim colors, and paint colors today. Okatee River Park is also out for bid. A bunch of projects are out for bid, so you'll have a lot of requests from us in the coming months. Bids are due October 31st for Okatee River Park. We'll aim to bring this to committee in November. The new Public Works, and I say Public Works and more because it's not just going to be a Public Works building. As part of the facilities master plan, we talked about putting multiple departments into one building. We've been working internally with charrettes to make sure that all the departmental needs are met before we pay somebody to draw the final plans and not have to go back and revise and spend more money. So that is in the second phase, and then we'll go out for design for site and building. Witness Tree Park, the contractor's been given a notice to proceed, and they should begin this week. I drove by this morning. There wasn't any action yet, but we'll check it daily. Whitehall Phase 2 is out for bid. Those bids are due next week, another one that we'll bring to you shortly. That, I believe, is the Phase 2 is the point we've had some erosion and the trail, et cetera. Spanish Moss Trail. This is the bridge south of Hermitage, kind of near TCL, the old train trestle bridge repair, is also out for bid. Camp St. Mary's, we're heading towards demolition, but before we can do that, we have to remediate lead and asbestos, so we're having a plan drawn before we can put that out for demolition to quantify that we're getting apples to apples bids when we do so. And the building in which we're standing, we've made some final revisions with some input from some of you guys with modifications mostly on that side of the wall in the beginning, just to have proper offices for everyone, and those have been sent to the architect for the final plan as well. And if you have any questions, you can have away.
It's all good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hey, let me, I asked Jared the same question I'm gonna ask you. Particularly with the Public Works building being planned, are we incorporating future growth for us, for space, and not dealing with just what's here now, but, what's to come in 20, 30 years? One of the problems I think this county has is there's not enough office space for employees. So are we incorporating plans to?
I don't think that, that's kind of I'll answer it in two ways. First of all,
You can answer three ways if you want.
how about, let's start with two.
Okay.
I've not been involved directly. I don't think we're building out big office space that's empty, but there is planning for future capacity, correct? I'm looking at the two guys involved back here. And on top of that, the consolidation of these departments is not just a one-off move. Other things that we're doing in the county, whether it's at BIV improvements or the Salem Road, which I forget to mention here, Salem Road, where we're moving Department of Health and Environmental Control, DHEC. We also have some county flex space in that building for potential growth, but not just for permanent growth, but as you renovate other facilities in the future, you need to have a place to place people while you move them around and improve buildings without having to build new ones. So those, yes, there are plans for future growth, but in addition to that one building, there are also plans to have some flex space other places so that we can maneuver people as needed.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. All right, we will go on to the next one then, a presentation of the US 278 Corridor Project Joint Independent Study. I'm sure Jared's happy this portion's coming to a close.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know how I get on all these committees and independent studies, but
You're good, you're
I'm
good.
glad we're closing this one down. So just a little update, kind of where we are on the project overall, and then I'll invite our consultant, Sean, to come and give us the presentation on all the work that they've done. So this started, the concept of this, remember, this is the second study. We've already had an independent study. This is the joint independent study, both with the town and county. So in October last year, we agreed on an MOA. Inside of that, we had several things that we were going to do together between the town and the county to move the project forward, one of which is doing an independent review together. Of that, we would have 6 members, staff members, to be on the committee, 3 from the county and 3 from the town. So we did that, and all 6 members were part of it from beginning to end. We put it out to bid at the end of the last year, and we received one sole bidder, which was CBB, but we all reviewed the proposal that was provided, and they were well qualified. So we were happy to move forward with that and move the project forward. So they got started in March, started doing some traffic counts, and got out there ahead of the golf tournament to get some accurate counts and before school was out. And then they've been working through the summer and just finished up as soon as Sunday night. They finished the last edits to the draft. So apologize again for not getting that out in the agenda packet, but I did send an email prior to this meeting with that full documentation. So Sean will be coming up and give us that presentation. And again, I wasn't sure what to expect in this. Again, this was the second study of what is already a good set of plans that DOT's prepared. But I was very happy with some of the results that came out of it, because I think what we have already is we have a solid base. If we're building a cake, we've got the cake, it's already made, it's already cooked. This is the icing on top. So to give it a little extra flavor, and I feel that's what this report does, and you'll hear that as Sean talks, is that these are all, I don't think there's any earth-changing, earth-shattering ideas that are coming from the study that Sean can talk to, but there are things that are adding flavor to it to help us tell the story. And one of the big things is having a bridge and a corridor that we can rely on. So the reliability factor, is it going to take you an hour or is it going to take you 2 hours? So if you live on landside and work on Hilton Head and you have a family and got to get back for kids and football games and whatever type of events, the reliability factor, do I need to leave at 3 or 4? And Sean did a great job looking at that and really helping us define that and look at ways that we can improve that in the future. So Sean, if you come forward, he's got a lot of digits behind his name, a lot of letters. So PE, PTOE, PTP, all that says is that you're dealing with a specialist. If you go to the doctor and you see the first guy, and then you go to 3 more doctor's appointments to get to the specialist, that's who you see. Well, that's who we have with us today. So Sean is the vice president of CBB. It's a group out of St. Louis, Missouri. We have never worked with Sean before, or his company, and glad now through this process that we have another friend and consultant to rely upon as we do transportation work and traffic work in the area. So with that, Sean, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. There we go. So what we're going to go through over the next little bit is, first, I'm going to just let you know a little bit about CBB. You don't know who we are. Just to give you some background, go over what we were asked to do, the questions we were asked, some of our major findings. In that, we're going to talk about travel demand management and some strategies for that, and happy to answer any questions after that. So a little bit about CBB. We are a niche transportation engineering and planning firm out of St. Louis. So there's about 35 of us, And all we do is transportation, engineering, planning, studies, so this type of work. We've been around, this is actually our 50th year this year. So two of our specialties that we brought in was transportation studies and planning and transportation modeling. That's the team that worked on it. So there's myself, Narav Patel's our modeler. Mike Albin did the work you'll see on transit and bike ped, and Joanne Martin is my assistant project manager on these. So what we are asked, these are the basic questions, is widening 278 to 6 lanes necessary? Do we need to do it? What are the downstream impacts if you do widen to 6 lanes? That's something that a lot of times is an afterthought. What are the unintended consequences? Are the DOT's traffic forecasts reasonable? And can you do other things like use public transportation, can use adaptive traffic signals, ITS, intelligent transportation systems? Can you do any of those and not widen the bridge? And then how will the project impact the non-motorized users that are out there? So we did a lot of work, as Jared said. So we looked at all the previous studies that were out there, the EA. We looked at the previous independent study that was done. We evaluated, and you'll see where this comes into play, some U.S. Census data on Journey to Work to understand who's using the bridge and when they're using the bridge. We looked at Chamber of Commerce visitor data, looked at a lot of DOT historic counts. We'll get into that. And then we did our own field work. So we took in March a lot of traffic counts. We studied the travel patterns that are out there, watched to understand where the queues are that are out in the field and experience some of those. And we did a lot of travel time runs, and we needed those travel time runs to calibrate this VISTA model we'll tell you about. We built a VISTA model, and I'll explain more on the next page about what that VISTA model is. But one of the things that did is it expanded the study areas that was previously done. So we brought our models out to Indigo Run, so we went down further on Business 278, and we went all the way down the Cross Island Parkway to Sea Pine Circle. So we'll talk about that, and that's looking at those downstream impacts. So we looked at the roadway network. We also, as we were out here, started to understand that there might be some other things at play. So we took a hard look at the bike ped network, the transit network that's out here, what you have for adaptive signal systems, ITS, and those types of things. So what is VISM? VISM is a traffic analysis software. It started out of Germany. I've been using it almost my whole career. And what it does is it models each vehicle independently. So you build a virtual road network, and then on that virtual road network, you put virtual vehicles. And it has different types of drivers. So it'll have more aggressive drivers, less aggressive drivers, and different types of vehicles. Where you can set the truck percentages of the vehicle types that are out there. I think the previous independent study used something called SimTraffic. This takes that modeling way up to higher levels and allows us to do a lot of really customizable analysis. So one of the things we had was a 3-hour peak. We looked at the morning and evening rush hours over a 3-hour peak, so we can see before the peak how the traffic's flowing. It's flowing fine. We can see those queues develop and why they develop in certain areas, and we'll talk about that. And then we can see how that queues eventually disperse. So we can get the whole event rather than look at a snapshot. This is kind of the worst 15 minutes of the day and what it looks like. We can actually see how that develops, how it evolves, and then how it kind of goes away. We looked at a number of scenarios. So this talks about the ones that are in the report. We ran a lot of scenarios to try to really get a handle on what the issues are and make sure that we had a really strong understanding of that. The other thing that's interesting with this is it's based on, it's a stochastic model, which means it introduces randomness into the model. So it changes the parameters every time you run it. So I can run the exact same model 5 times and I'll get 5 different results. So that is some way to reflect, and this is, if you go out there every day this week, the queues are not exactly the same, right? The travel patterns are not exactly the same. There's randomness in the world, and the model helps us to reflect that randomness that's out there. So the first question, is the project needed? And this is my favorite graph to explain that the project is needed. And some of this we have highlighted, and I'll give you a second to read, that highlighted, the bolded text. Those are our major findings. But basically, yes. The answer is yes, absolutely, this project is needed. If you look at the blue line across the top, those are the average daily traffic volumes going back to 2010 out till what we're expecting for 2023. And you can see they go up, up, up. And in 2020 is the big decline, of course, because of COVID. If you look at the lines below it, those are the peak hour volumes, right? And what you see with those peak hour, that's the morning peak and the evening peak, those really capped out around 2017. You see, they're flat past 2017. What that tells me is, since the daily traffic's still going up, but since our peak hours are flat, we've hit capacity. The reason that they're flat isn't because people aren't trying to get onto the island and off the island. It's because there's no more capacity on that bridge, and that's all the traffic you're gonna fit. So we go out another 5 years without doing the bridge, those numbers will still be flat. What happens is we have this thing called peak spreading. And what happens with peak spreading is that if I got to be at work at 8, rather than leave at 7:30, maybe I'm going to leave at 7. So I start going earlier and earlier or later and later, and this gets back to that travel time reliability. I start adjusting my travel time so I'm trying to get on the edges of that worst traffic. And that's already happening out there right now. So there's the morning, and this should be no surprise to anybody. The bottom diagram shows just one of the outputs that we can get out of the Vista model that shows speeds. So green is good, red is lower speeds, pink is really low speeds. You can see the queues. So what basically happens in the morning is you have all this traffic coming on through Bluffton, either from 278 or Bluffton Parkway, and it all has to come down and merge at one point. And past that merge, 278 is running at capacity, right? You're fitting as many cars on the road as you can. And then when they get to Squire Pope, we start interrupting the traffic stream because we have a traffic light, right? And with those interruptions, that queue starts to propagate because that becomes the bottleneck all the way back. And you'll get that slinky effect all the way through the system. That's basically that red light, green light propagating its way back through the system all the way back to Bluffton. So that's where those queues come from. So you have two queues. You have two capacity constraints. The Squire Pope one is the bigger bottleneck, but the fact that there's only 2 lanes on the bridge and through that merge is also a bottleneck, but a lesser bottleneck. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So that queue really starts at Squire Pope. Now, the good news is in the morning, once you get past Squire Pope, you've got some people taking Cross Island, some people taking Business 278, so that traffic can disperse. But that's really the source of that bottleneck. In the evening, it's that way in reverse. Now, on Cross Island, I've got 2 lanes that are coming north. They merge into one, but still a lot of traffic. You've got 2 lanes from Business 278, and all that's got to squeeze down at the Squire Pope traffic signal back to 2 lanes. And because of that, you get those big queues that back up through the system. So again, here we can see the speeds, and then you can see some of the queues. I'll tell you that northbound queue on Cross Island Parkway, that's got to be the slowest queue I've ever personally sat in. I was astonished at how slow that traffic was going. So one of the questions we asked is, who's impacted? Who's in the queues? And where this really came up is, and these guys told us, traffic starts before it gets light out. And as I'm sitting in this queue in the dark in the morning, these aren't tourists that are driving here, right? And I look around all the work trucks, and these are commuters. So that's kind of the first indication that who's being impacted in the morning, it's really your workforce. When we look at this journey to work data, that upper right diagram, this is from the U.S. Census Bureau, and it tells you of all the jobs on Hilton Head Island, who lives on the island, who's commuting in, and then we have some people that live on the island commute out. I think you were mentioning somebody there earlier, right? So 2/3 or 64% of the people who work on Hilton Head Island actually commute in. So that's your morning rush. It's all the people trying to commute. 50% of the jobs on the island are things like food service, hotel service, construction, people who have to be there at a certain time. These are not jobs that I can Zoom in or I can Teams in and don't necessarily have the flexible work hours. So this morning rush hour, you're really dealing with the workforce. In St. Louis, a number of years ago, we were trying to get a tax increase for transit, and the mayor of a community called Chesterfield, which is a higher end, kind of a wealthy neighborhood, was the leader for this. And people were trying to understand, why is this person really so pro-transit? And it was the business community that was really talking to him, saying, hey, listen, the people that are working in the Starbucks and working in all these stores are taking transit to get to work, right? So that's kind of the situation that you have. You have a lot of people that need to get into work in the morning. that are doing a lot of these jobs that you need to give landscaping, construction, again, and a lot of the service industry, and those are the people that are caught in there. In the evening, there is some of that, but maybe to a lesser degree. But to a lesser degree, you also have the visitors caught up in the mix, and there's a lot of variability. When we look at the evening peak period, the commute can vary drastically from day to day. And part of that is we understand it, and we are asking a lot of questions like, why is that? If it's a nice day and you have a lot of visitors in on the beach and then it starts to rain early afternoon, a lot of those people might say, forget it, we're going back home. All those people then are piled on top of all the workforce that's trying to get home, and it really creates a big bottleneck, and that bridge is the only way off the island. And there's a lot of variability in that time, which really impacts people's ability to bring their kids to soccer practice or football practice or all the other things that parents want to do with the kids or families want to do, right? So that variability really has a big impact on the people who work on the island and need to go back home to do things at the end of the day. We took a look at some numbers. There's a lot of graphs here, and I'll kind of explain the significance of these. So the one on the upper left is just how many visitors come every month to the island. We got that from the Convention Bureau. And you can see it's a lot higher in the summer, and it tails off in the winter. When we look at the daily traffic volumes, the one below it, we don't see that same shape. We see it's much more consistent. There's an R-squared value on 3 of those charts, so that R-squared is just some measure of consistency. So the closer that number is to 1, the more consistent the data is. So the lower left is the daily volumes. It's more consistent than the visitor data, but it's actually less consistent than the morning and the evening peak. The morning peak is the upper right, and the evening peak is the lower right. So you can see the most consistent data is that morning peak hour rush. Those are just people trying to get into work. Your next highest is the PM peak, which is less consistent than the morning, and that's that variability I was talking about. And then there's more variability when we just look at daily volumes, because that's much more related to tourist season. When we look at the bridge crossings, according to the DOT, there's about 20 million crossings of the bridge every year. According to the Visitors Bureau, there's about 3 million visitors. When you look at people per car and all that stuff, about 10 to 20% of that traffic on the bridge are actually visitors. The vast majority of that are people who are commuters. So I'm going to talk about 2, what I'm calling supporting projects that y'all need to think about. And then we'll talk about kind of the impact of this project overall. So the first thing that we see is likely to happen is Gumtree in the morning in the eastbound direction already backs up to Cross Island Parkway or past that underneath. It's already at capacity. If we release the queue and we send more traffic to that traffic signal, it's gonna back up. It becomes a choke point. So it becomes the new bottleneck. In the past, and I think it was going back to around 2017, that used to have 3 eastbound through lanes in there. When the crosswalks were put in, or there was a pedestrian improvement project, it was brought down to 2 throughs and a right turn lane. Our recommendation is to take a real hard look at putting 3 through lanes back through that intersection. It looks like you can do it without widening the footprint. You should be able to still do it and keep the crosswalks and keep it safe. One of the things you might be able to do on the west side, when you push the walk button, it actually gives you enough time to get all the way across all of that. What you could do is you could let them get across half of it, put another ped button in the middle, in that median, and then let them get across the rest of the way. So there's ways that you could design that signal to have 3 eastbound lanes. We really think that that's going to be needed when the bridge project is done. The other one, and this one's a little harder. This is Sea Pine Circle. So Sea Pine Circle is already congested. In order to attract people to Cross Island Parkway and take traffic out of this Gumtree intersection we're just talking about, you need more people to use Cross Island Parkway. But they get stuck at the Sea Pine Circle, right? Because it's already congested. And again, if I'm sending more traffic down there, just going to make that project problem worse. The trick here is that you got something really great there, that it's a nice gateway and it's a nice calming feature. So people come off Cross Island Parkway, they hit Sea Pine Circle, it slows everybody down coming into town, and it's a nice point of, you're off the freeway, now you're in a community, you should drive better. So we don't have a strong recommendation of what that ought to look like, because I think there needs to be much more involvement. That's a big project to figure that out on its own. But our recommendation is for the community, between the county and the town, to really take a hard look at that intersection to see how you can add some capacity there, but still keep the gateway features that are there. One of the things that you'll notice, and when you look at our report, what we did is we put a traffic signal in there just so we could get the volumes up through. So that wasn't a choke point and all the cars were stuck. So we put it in there just to see, if we can get all the volumes through there, what happens to the rest of the network? What happens to Cross Island Parkway and 278 and the rest of it? So this is one where, the Gumtree, I think, is a pretty easy recommendation for us. Somebody's got to do a design and figure out exactly what it looks like. With Sea Pines, we think somebody really needs to get in there and see what the options are, because there's going to be a trade-off, I think, between having that gateway feature and having capacity. So there's going to be you figure out where that right balance is. So this shows the benefits of the project, and there's the AM is on the left, the PM's on the right, and this shows the no build, which is there today, the 2030 base build, which is the DOT's project as planned, and then we have 2030 build plus. So on the AM, you can see that if the DOT just did their project, it really doesn't improve things very much without improving Gumtree. Because the bottlenecks at Gumtree and the bottleneck that goes there all the way to Bluffton is going to go back all the way to Bluffton, and you're still going to have the same issues if we don't make those improvements. So that really shows that the Gumtree improvement's necessary. Good news is, in the PM, once we have the extra lanes on the bridge, and we have that extra lane through Squire Pope, it flushes the traffic out. So that Gumtree improvement is really a morning peak need and not necessarily an evening peak need. The DOT's project really fixes the PM issues very well. We were asked to take a look at what if we don't widen as part of the DOT's project through the Stony community. We understand it's a very sensitive area, and we need to do all we can to not impact that area. The bottom line is the issue is at that Squire Pope Spanish Wells area, because everybody from the bridge goes to those two traffic lights, and then you split off between Business 278 and the Cross Island Parkway. So if we don't make an improvement there, it actually makes it worse, right? So it's really not helping anything. You'll notice the big jump in northbound Cross Island Parkway in the PM from 17 to 33. We actually improved in the model Sea Pines to let that traffic up. And then what happens is there's just more traffic sitting in that same old queue. So you can see what those impacts are. But we were asked, do you really need to widen through that area? And if you want the project to be effective, yes, you do. We're asked to look at future traffic growth. So this looks at the historic ADTs we talked about earlier. The green dot, which is covered up by the black dot, to some extent, is the EA's traffic forecast. When we look at all the modeling that was done to do those forecasts, they all seem pretty reasonable. So we don't have any quibbles with the forecast that was done by the DOT for this project. We think it's reasonable, and if we came up with a number independently, we would have probably come up with the same number. This one, and this is going to take a little explanation. So this is the question for how does this work going in the future? Everything I've been talking about so far is looking at how does this work to the day it opens, right? Opening day. So on the left side, we have a graph. And in the blue there, that's the numbers we were talking about earlier with the morning peak. So it grows, and it flattens off. The orange extending shows the throughput on the bridge in out years. So that shows that the traffic across the bridge continues to grow as we have capacity there. So about 2045. In about 2045, what happens is we start to hit capacity again. And this becomes the thing. On the right, all those graphs, the words aren't as important, it's the numbers, or it's the colors that are important. So the very top one is 2023, no build, and then all the ones below it are build, and it starts 2025, 2030, 2035, 2040, 2045, and 2050. And at the very top of each of those little cells is Bluffton, and it just shows the speeds going to the east. So you can see that opening day, a huge improvement. All the red's gone, and we have a lot of green, so a lot of good speeds. And as we progress through the years, we start getting some orange, and then we start getting some red back. So the question is, how long is this project really going to provide a benefit? Well, it's going to provide a benefit all the way up to, say, 2045, because we're able to get more vehicles through the network, right? We're able to get more people on and off the island. But we are going to start to see some congestion and then some delay as we get back into the out years, maybe around the 2040, 2045 range. And then PM, we see the same trend, right? So in the blue is the historic peak hour volumes. We can see that orange line, we continue to have more throughput as we go. The very top, a lot of red as it's jammed up. The DOT's project really clears that up, and then we start to get some congestion again down the out years. What we see in this one is just a note, the red is down further down the column in the top chart because that is from Squire Pope. What ends up actually happening in the PM is at some point, Business 278 itself can only accept so much traffic, and that's where the congestion is. It's more to the east, maybe what you go run and some of those other intersections. So the question is then, how do we extend the life of this project? How do we make it so this project can last a really long time, right? And this is where we get to travel demand management. So can we provide people opportunities to make their trips without necessarily having to drive across the bridge? And we'll come back to this. And we think that you've got some really good bones to start working with that based on the bike ped network you have, the infrastructure on the island, which really needs to be bolstered up on the mainland side, as well as you've got a base transit system, we'll talk about this here in a minute, that could really be bolstered up to help. We started to look at other communities, other tourist-oriented communities and what they're doing. And one of the best examples that I come up with was Summit County, Colorado, which feels kind of weird, right? So you were a beach community here. What does Summit County have to do with this? Summit County has the same kind of a situation. So Shalene Bott, who's the new Federal Highway Administrator, used to be the Colorado's DOT CEO. He was recently at a conference that I was at, and he was talking about this. So the timing was really cool. You've got a lot of people that are in Denver, either flying in from the airport or live in Denver and want to go up to Breckenridge, Vail, all these places and go skiing. 70 has got environmental constraints for the DOT to be able to widen it. So they're not able to widen 70. So they're trying to figure out, how do we keep this thriving ski community alive while we have these constraints, the Eisenhower Tunnel and some other very environmentally sensitive areas through the mountains. So what they've done is they've developed a transit system in Summit County that the county runs. And it's a local circulator that gets people around between the different resorts to get around wherever they need to go. And at the same time, there's a very active shuttle system from Denver that'll bring people up. So you can fly into Denver, take the shuttle up to Frisco, catch the local shuttle, and you can get anywhere you need to go without having to drive up there. Very convenient for people who are going in. Their ridership, they really started in the 90s, and in 92 their ridership was 400,000, and they're up to close to 2 million trips a day now. So it's maybe a model that you could look at of how people could get around in this area the same way and reduce to some extent the need for people to drive across the bridge. You've got a strong base to build from, in that you've got an established transit system, you've got really strong bike ped infrastructure. There's going to be a new multi-use path along the south side of the bridge. One of the things that's a big discussion in the world of transportation, it's probably too far for most people to ride a bike to work if I'm going to work in a service business. But if I have an e-bike, that changes the game, right? So would you have people in these future years, we're talking years down the road, and there's there's traffic issues, might be faster to ride your e-bike across the bridge than to sit in traffic to be able to get there. There are some challenges. So the Palmetto Breeze doesn't have a lot of funding. They get about half their funding from local and about half from the federal government. The services right now aren't coordinated well, so you've got a lot of transit systems like this Sea Pines trolley. The services aren't necessarily coordinated to make it easy for people to use them in a seamless system. The service is pretty limited. To make transit work, it's got to go where you need to go and when you need to go there. So one of the issues is, it runs once a day in and kind of once a day out. And then the ferry, only runs during the May to December, so only during the tourist season. So if I work on the island, it's not necessarily going to help me out. One of the things that could be an easy fix, there aren't any park and ride lots to be able to use that. And even if there were, the transfer hub that they have is in a maintenance facility. And at the entrance, the maintenance facility is on a no trespassing sign. So we tried to get our guy onto the bus. He's like, well, I can't figure out where to catch the thing because there's a transfer hub in there, but I can't get to it. Which is, kind of telling of some of the challenges. And then a lot of the bus stops aren't signed very well. Again, it's not obvious where those buses stop. So when we look at it, there's some really cool opportunities that are there. There are some challenges, things that are definitely you're able to work on and improve upon to get a system that would be more functional. So the short term, and these are all things I think you could start thinking about now. Good news is you've got a system. This bridge project will go before the bridge is built. I would have Gumtree done, and I'd have an idea what you want to do at Sea Pines, because those are going to come up as immediate issues. All this other stuff is going to come up years down the road, but it takes a long time to get systems in place and get people to accept it and really get things to work well. So I believe that in the past, there's been on the agenda to have a sales tax for transit, and maybe that's back on, but that's something I would definitely look at just to get the funding in place to start working on some of these. We do work with the city of St. Louis, and I've told their street commissioner that to get public transportation work, it's not Metro's problem. Metro has half the problem. They own the other half, because you have to have good bus stops and people have to be able to get there, and the system has to work, the infrastructure has to work for buses. So park and ride lots would be helpful, I think, to get them a good transfer center that's accessible, and park and ride lots so people could use it would be a big step. Trying to work with them to coordinate between the systems and to get a little better service would be a big deal. You'll have to market this at some point so people know that it's there and how to use it. And you can do some of that through, looking at maybe retirement communities, other places where you would have people that would be kind of a captive audience. So the transit system in St. Charles County, where I'm from, started as the Silver Line Express or something, but it went to the retirement centers and eventually expanded out to things that a lot of people use. And then one of the things I think to look at with the DOT's project is there's a concept that's out in many cities of bus on shoulder. It takes a little different design. It depends on what their design is, how wide they're going to make their shoulders. But if the shoulders are wide enough in future years, if there was congestion, and the buses can get over on the shoulder, and they're not doing 60, they're probably doing 30 miles an hour, but they can bypass that queue. It again makes that transit a lot more, provides a lot better consistency for people using it, and it makes that transit a lot more attractive for people to use. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at, and happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I like the idea of the bus jumping the queue for the buses, but did you look at anything about HOV lanes as part of this? Like, or if we went to more lanes?
Yeah, so
During the peak times particularly.
so they're called managed lanes. There's different ways you can play managed lanes. There's HOV lanes, there's HOT lanes, or high occupancy toll lanes. I really don't see them on the bridge necessarily. There's a concept called hard running shoulders you could do. The need that you have for the 6 lanes is a basic capacity. So a lot of places in Colorado did this. They put hard running shoulders with a toll. And the reason they did that is because they didn't have enough money to build the extra lane. So it was a revenue mechanism. And I'm not sure if South Carolina allows tolls. So I think there's maybe some legislative issues with that potentially. But for the 3 lanes, it's really just the need for that basic capacity that you have. I'm not sure I see a real strong argument for managed lanes for that project.
Not a question, just a comment.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. You've given us a great deal of information to deal with. I'm happy to see that you went out to Indigo Run and also to Sea Pine Circle. And the suggestions that you've made for the future are going to be the real challenge. I mean, the present focus on the bridge and the roads seem to be something that we can achieve. But all of these other things, even, you didn't mention flying cars, but I'm sure you thought about it. All of these things going out 10 or 20 years are going to be a real, we weren't built for that here. And now we have to start to address it. And I'm not sure how we'll even do it. But they're great suggestions and congratulations. It's really well done. Thank you.
I have a question. Would the people be, that's coming like from Hardyville and Jasper County, park someplace, a commuter lot, park someplace, have the bus pick them up there at certain times, take them to the island, drop them off certain places, and then coming back, the same thing, pick up the car. I mean, that's what we did in the DC area, all over the place, and it really worked.
Right, that's the idea is to, and you need ridership for that. That's why it takes a long time to build this kind of a system. So you need the infrastructure with those lots. You need funding to be able to run the buses. Part of it is if the bus runs once a day and that doesn't coincide with your shift, right, then that's not going to work. So the more ridership you get, the more service you can get, and it just kind of builds upon itself. But that's certainly the idea.
Anybody else? Yep.
The parking lot transportation, I like that. In your study, did you identify how many for future planning? If we thought about that, how many do we actually need to look at so that if we're gonna do that, purchasing land right now is gonna be cheaper than waiting 10 years down the road to purchase the land. So it's just, putting some thoughts in the mind, whether we bite it or not is up to us, but do your study look at that kind of potential for us to say, hey, you're gonna need 3, 5 parking lots to cover Beaufort County for the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. Our study did not get that far. This is one of the places that we were expecting the Vista model and kind of that. Once we get into it, we're like, well, we need to figure out some other solutions. And I'm not going to remember her name, but we interviewed the executive director of Palmetto Breeze, and she's on top of it, so she's got plans. She knows what she would do. So I think there would need to be a subsequent study to really kind of map that out, depending on what kind of funding is available. Part of it depends on the service, and so it all kind of rolls together. But to come up with a larger transit plan, I think is a need, if that's something that the county is interested in pursuing.
Okay, thank you.
This focus was from Bluffton to Hilton Head.
Yes.
Okay, so if we're going to expand that to other areas, that would be a whole other consideration.
Right.
So the parking lots that we might need would all be over in that area, moving traffic from, onto, and then back to get the car to go wherever they have to go.
Yes.
Anybody else before I go? I guess mine's more of a question and a comment at the same. I noticed as you have it projected that numbers are going to continue to climb. Part of that you say is because we're expanding, so that's going to go up no matter what because we're already allowing more cars. But at what point in the future do we plateau because there's no more growth? There's no more jobs to fill. There's no more houses that can be built. At what point does that happen? Because if we do our job properly, I would like to see that coming sooner rather than later. If not, we're not doing our job properly, and we're just always going to be chasing it over and over and over. So did your model show, was it based off of the continued increase, or is that taking the population eventually is going to cap out on Hilton Head?
Yeah, sure. So the DOT has, so eventually, right, things cap out. The DOT's got a travel demand model, and that incorporates land use and future land use and development in that. So with this travel demand management, there's a couple things you can do. You can not have growth. You can have affordable housing on the island so people can live here and not have to drive in. So there's a number of things that you can do. So you bring up a good question, and you can change that trajectory. So we gave you a couple transportation ways to change that trajectory. The other way to do that is through land use planning and land use policy. And that was outside of the scope that we were looking at, so.
Right. Understand. If there's no other questions, I appreciate it. I think this gets us started at what we need to do next.
All right, thank you.
Jared, do you have anything else on that one?
No, just appreciate all the work that Sean and his group did. As you can all see, there was a lot of energy and effort that went into it and a lot of brain cells. And so we appreciate that part. And yeah, we're going to move this project to the next step. So this will be held, the same presentation is going to be, Sean's going to fly back home and then come back next week to Hilton Head's meeting next Tuesday.
Perfect.
Yep.
That last sheet you had recommendations, is that available? The last slide presentation, it showed the recommendation, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get a copy of this to
Okay.
everybody. Yeah, we'll send out.
Good luck at that meeting next week.
Yeah.
I need it.
Thank you.
We will move on. This doesn't need to be moved forward or anything. This is just a presentation for us, information purposes. So we will move on to number 8, discussion regarding sales tax committee appointments. Jared, you are back on the ball, my friend.
Yep, a lot of good things today, so a lot of heavy hitting. Appreciate that. There wasn't a short way to do that presentation to really highlight all the work that they've done. This sales tax committee, so we've been talking about sales tax for a little while now, and getting the committee started. So one of the things we talked about is it's a 6-member committee that we're following the statute, as it pertains to capital project sales tax, not knowing what sales tax we're going to bring forward, but knowing that if that is the one, we want to make sure that we're doing everything right per the law. So in regards to that, what we've talked about, and we discussed this through executive session as well, is basically that there's a formula in the statute itself that prescribes exactly how this is to be done. 3 are to be appointed from the county, and then 3 are to be appointed by the municipalities. In addition to that, the municipalities, it goes further and has a formula and says, this is how, based off your population, relative to the rest of the county, how many appointees each municipality gets. For us, that was Hilton Head had 1 appointee. We thought initially that the town of Bluffton had an appointee as well, and then that Bluffton, or Beaufort and Beaufort and Port Royal would share one. One technicality that our legal team found from Attorney General opinion was that we were using a rounding error, and basically it was per the math calculation, only if you were above and beyond that point would you have an opportunity to appoint. So specific to us, that means the town of Hilton Head is the only one that met that threshold to have a municipal appointee. They have made a municipal appointee in Mr. Morris Campbell. And then pursuant to the law again, then that appointee appoints the other 2 municipal appointees, not county council. County council only appoints the county representatives. So this weekend, Mr. Campbell provided a letter to Chairman Passamit for the other 2 appointees. So for the town of Bluffton, he appointed Charlie Whitmore, and for the town of Port Royal and City of Beaufort combined, he appointed Dean Moss. Those are all names that we had discussed previously and that the towns were happy with. So it was a favorable appointments from Mr. Campbell. So really the task tonight is to discuss the county 3 representatives, and we've had various names, and I guess I would lean on you guys as the committee to discuss those names and make whatever recommendation you would choose to provide that to full council.
Yeah, we tasked Jared with a big project in January, February, that we wanted to get this done, and the committee formed so we can get this out to the public as soon as possible. We're on track to get it done before the end of this year and have the committee meet multiple times. Our goal is to educate the public by the end of the spring, so there's enough time for us to go around the county, hold sessions, put it out in the papers everywhere we need to, so we can have this well-rounded, because it is a big project we're talking about doing. Mr. Chairman, if you would, we have a couple nominations.
Yes, I would move that we nominate and forward the names of Antron Solomon from St. Helena Island, who represents District 3, Carol Ruff from Ladies Island, District 2, and Tom Lennox from Hilton Head Island, District 11. Move that we send these names to County Council for appointment to the Tax Advisory Committee in accordance with the South Carolina Code, Section 4-10-320.
We have a motion. Do we have a second for this?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion?
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
This is a 6-member committee.
Yes.
I heard Jared mentioned Morris Campbell as one of the committees. Who are the other two besides the 3 that we're trying to nominate
Charlie
here?
Whitmore.
Charlie Whitmore and Dean Moss.
Yeah, and
So
Charlie
six-member
lives in the
committee
town of
will have-
Bluffton, and Dean lives in Port Royal, or north of the Broad here.
Right, so there's going to be 3 members from north of the Broad, 3 members from south of the Broad.
Thanks, Jared.
Jared, were we able to make contact with everybody?
Yes, so we were able to reach out to the 3 that Chairman Passman just mentioned. So they all said they looked favorable upon this, and if nominated, would serve. Yes.
Any other discussion? Do we have any objection to this nominations? No objection. This will move on to County Council this evening for a time-sensitive matter. Number 9, recommended approval of resolution to enter in an intergovernmental support agreement with Department of Defense to support operations at the Marine Corps Recruit, Paris Island, the Marine Corps Air Station, and the Naval Hospital by providing general governmental services.
Yeah, so this is an exciting opportunity that came to us. So we had interactions with Paris Island as far as some services that they provide. So IGSA is an intergovernmental support agreement. So very similar to an IGA, intergovernmental agreement that we would have with another municipality. So the only difference is this would support an installation, a military installation. Being that we have 3, this would be a way and a mechanism for us to interact with each of the bases. Should they have a service that basically they are in essence working like a little municipality, each and every one of them on all 3 bases. So those functions aren't necessarily their mission critical functions. And if that's something that we already provide that service either directly or through via contract, then that's an opportunity that we can help them, and it helps them by expediting the process and potentially cost savings on what the fees. So in this agreement, this is a resolution that would provide us the opportunity to enter into not just one that we have that we're looking at right now, but others in the future. The one that we're looking at right now is an agreement they've asked us to put some riprap on a couple shorelines that they have to repair before, hopefully before hurricane season's over. So they don't get damaged anymore if there's any further storms. There's also some opportunities that they've mentioned as some subsequent ones, one being some custodial services, and second being some grounds maintenance operations. So again, stuff that we do and provide already, we would provide a quote or a fee to them. They have their own internal cost estimate of what they think the work should cost them. And if it finds favorable for them, then they would pay us to perform that work, much like a contractor, and we would use our forces to do that work. So with that, I guess I'll take any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
From what I understand from listening to the same proposition that they did with the town of Port Royal, the county or whoever's providing it can also, any handling, like if you have to put something out for contract or other things, there's a certain amount percentage. Could you go over that with us that the county could receive as for handling those
Yeah,
things for them?
so if we're working on this, similar to a contractor, there's an overhead. For instance, if we procure a service and don't necessarily provide a service, we can assess a overhead rate to manage that contract. So whether we provide it in-house, again, same thing. The intent is not for us to make a ton of profit, but the intent is for us to cover our costs, or any extra associated overhead costs that we carry.
This is very beneficial to the military and saves money for them too, to use local assets, so to speak.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Jared, I like the idea, I like the concept of working with the military installations here. I guess my real concern is, one, currently we understaff, so is that placing some type of hardship on us because of understaff? And then the other one is this a way for the military to kind of save money, but because they are not employing their operation, but subcontracting out, and it'd be cheaper to subcontract it out than for them to maintain?
Yeah, so they have to evaluate it on their own, absolutely. As far as us and our workforce, so yeah, if we don't have the workforce and we can't provide the opportunity, we just simply say, no, this is not one that we can assist with. It also, like you mentioned, Ms. Howard, what they want to see us is to grow. So if we have a service we already provide and they're paying us to do the service and enough for us to be profitable providing the service, then there's opportunities for us to expand our workforce. So for instance, if we're doing riprap, and that's just a short-term project, but if we do something long-term, the hope is that they're paying us well enough that we can, if it takes one or two extra bodies, then that's going to cover that for us. So that it doesn't take away from our existing work and schedule of services that we already provide, but in addition to.
That's my only concern.
I share your same concerns, Jordan.
Yeah.
Do we have a recommendation to move this forward?
I'll make a motion to move it forward.
No, I'll second that.
Second?
Recommendation.
Do we have any objections? This will move forward with no objection then. All right, number 10, just a little homework here on this one, right, Jared? Recommend approval of resolution for an amendment to a 2020 MOU with the town of Hilton Head for the St. James Baptist Church relocation project.
Absolutely. So, yeah, this is an addendum. So, as you all are aware, this is a project that's been going on for some time now. And it seems like we've made some progress and then things will stall, and then we made some progress and it stalls. And so, as of recently, we've had a good core group both at the county and the town and at the church that have come together and said, okay, let's reignite this. We've had a lot of good meetings over the last several months as part of that. And through the discussions, I'm fairly new to the project, but through the discussions, it was identified, oh yes, we had talked about this already. We did have an MOU. So the thought wasn't necessarily to discard that and start over. It still applied. A lot of the stuff was basically, hey, let's work together. There was already establishment of some funding up to $300,000, so $150,000 from the town and $150,000 from the county, set aside an account for us to do the due diligence and prepare an application for the church, for the county to make a submittal of the relocation of the church to FAA for reimbursement. So really all this is a reaffirmation of that and an update on the project since 2020, so 3 years ago, what has changed. The bulk of this addendum is one that we identify a consultant, your church partners that would work underneath the church, and that they would help the church and the town and the county help cultivate what the plan is that the church would like to see as their new building, and help us with the cost associated with that, doing a cost estimate, so that we can make a formal and educated ask to FAA. So it's one, asking that church partners be involved, and then secondly, what we didn't have in that MOU in 2020 was the church. So we were going to make all these grand plans, but it was just between the county and the town, and the person actually, or the group actually getting moved wasn't a part of this. So this addendum actually brings the church in the fold, and both the church and the town of Hilton Head have already signed the addendum as drafted so far. So we would be the ones that would be the last signature on that. And one thing to note, just real quick, I mentioned we had a lot of good meetings recently. We actually had a meeting on September 8th, so here just recently, where we had FAA, not just local FAA, but FAA all the way from Washington, D.C., Miss Shanetta Griffin, who is the associate administrator. So she is the top dog in FAA, only second under Pete Buttigieg, who's over USDOT. So she came as well as the top dog from Atlanta. So Mr. Parks Preston, he's the area district office manager. So both of them came and welcomed all the conversation. It was held at the school there, and it was just a great discussion. And even since then, we received a letter from the district office confirming that, yes, this project is eligible for reimbursement. So that had been a question that the church had had for a long time. So again, extremely positive conversations and meeting lately. This is just another positive way to signify that.
Thank you, Jared. Do we have a motion? Move this forward?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Second. Second is Mr. Glover, or, motion by Mr. Glover, second by Mr. McKell.
No, give it to, yeah.
That's fine. Not a problem.
Question.
I remember that when y'all fight over some things I need one for. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jared, you said the town of Hilton Head and the church has basically agreed to this intergovernmental agreement for the relocation of the church. All right, where are we, or where are they with the reconstruction of the new building? This is not part of that, right?
No, this is just for the moving of the existing church and the existing school. That would be what the application that we would put together to FAA for funding.
We're not moving that church. We're not moving that church. The
The-
church isn't moving to a new space. We're gonna build a new church.
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. With, that church will not be moved. That church will be, become FAA or become county property as far as the airport, and then they would get a new church built at a different location.
The school is gonna be moved.
The school will be moved,
Yes.
correct. Yes, thank y'all for the clarifications.
Okay, if my memory serves me correctly, in the past, there was some discussion about the relocation of the church, but not actually moving the existing structure, but relocating the church to, what's the area over there, Larry?
The golf course over there.
The Union Cemetery.
Union Cemetery.
So we're relocating the parish,
Right.
Okay.
the church members, the body,
There you go.
and building a new structure. The old structure will remain and will become
All right.
property of the airport, and then moving the school, that will be lifted up and reset.
All right, in addition to that, we also had some discussion about the cost and the construction of the new sanctuary.
Yes.
Where are we with that? Where's the church at with that?
That's what this is. So we had some dates that some cost figures that we had initially applied.
Okay.
We had sent that to FAA and they provided us a response. And the response was, no, we're only going to approve light for light. They didn't give us any more clarity than that. So FAA, again, like I said, came in September. They still didn't really give a lot more clarity than that. But they did say it is absolutely an eligible project. We're going to work with you hand in hand to facilitate this project. We're going to show up to the ribbon cutting when you move the church. And so your church partners, the consultant that's going to work underneath the church, is going to help us develop that cost estimate. So they recognize, the FAA recognizes that the existing church that was built in the 70s, the cost to rebuild that same structure will cost significantly more than the value of the church as it sits today. So there is a recognition by FAA that the cost of construction is more, but they want to make sure it's a similar size church. You're not going from 200 seats to 500 seats.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Do we have any objection?
No.
This will move forward with no objection, and
Mr. Chairman, before you move on, I just want to thank Jared for working this out. It's been a long process, and I know there's been a lot of heated conversation, et cetera, et cetera. So I would just want to say thank you, and to have top dogs at both levels, regional and national, to come down, that's impressive.
well, and that wasn't just me, that was the team.
I understand.
So everybody's been working together.
Well, you tell the
and-
team I said they've done a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pass that along.
thank you, Jared. Number 11, we'll move on. Recommend approval on ordinance authorizing the county administrator to execute any and all documents necessary to accept right-of-way
Yeah, well, without objection.
Okay.
on the right-of-way Deanna's Drive. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
I didn't
I'll
know-
second.
I didn't know
Thank
I
you.
was doing that.
Any discussion?
It's pretty quick.
This will move forward with no objection. Alrighty, number 12, recommend approval of a contract award to First Construction Management for IFB number 082423E Spanish Moss Trail Port Royal Extension. Eric?
I give Jared a
Welcome.
break for
I was about to
a
say,
moment.
Jared's gotta
Yeah,
catch his breath
yeah,
at
he's
this
got to go
point.
get a drink of water. So this is for Spanish Moss Trail Extension. This is in Port Royal where the rail used to cross. So this is the implementation of a hawk signal as well as about 1,600 feet of Spanish Moss Trail. So we had 3 bids. We have First Construction Management is the lowest acceptable bid. And so we are moving forward with them and would be happy to answer any questions for you all. So a hawk signal is similar to what's out on Robert Smalls right by Publix. So more of just the pedestrian crossing features there. Again, safe crossing to get people across. Similar to what Jared had said earlier about the signal at Windmill Harbor, we'll look at this signal, see if there needs to be anything in advance of this signal, but again, because this will be the first signal that you see once you come off the Russell Bell Bridge, get a lot of speeding through that area. So again, we'll implement this, do some things with message boards to make sure people are aware that that new signal is there and go from there.
Perfect. I would just comment, because we discussed during our agenda review, this was the lowest acceptable bid. We had
Correct.
another bid come in, but deemed that they weren't fit for the project or couldn't meet the requirements that we wanted to put forward.
Correct. Yeah, so this was, the lowest acceptable bid was First Construction Management.
Yeah.
There was another contractor who had submitted, who was actually low bid. They're not a DOT-approved contractor, as well as did not provide all their subcontractors necessary to be able to complete all the work.
Perfect. Do we have a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
I knew it was coming, Ms. Howard. Remember that when
I
I won golf
second it.
carts in Bluffton? I'll take that second there.
And I did too.
Do we have any discussion?
I just have a comment, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate that you put the fiscal impact, you put the account number and the balance left in the account. That means I don't have to go dig for it,
Yes. Yes,
because I
ma'am.
trust you put the right number in there.
Yes.
Any objection on number 12? This will move forward with no objection. Number 13, recommend approval resolution authorizing the interim administrator enter into an MOA between Beaufort County and the city of Beaufort to explore the feasibility of co-locating municipal fire service and EMS. Welcome back.
Thank you. This is a long-standing discussion, began by the artist formerly known as Assistant County Administrator John Robinson, that we looked at in the CIP process to do a new EMS center, which would have the 3 functions of logistics, command, and function. But in looking at it and how to save money, we thought Beaufort is one of the only places we don't co-locate with fire rescue, with our EMS. And so we have one right across the street. So we have money budgeted, as you see, 1.5 million. He worked together with the Beaufort Port Royal Fire Service to draw an MOU up that the city has already, MOA up that the city has already signed, not to undertake the whole project, and I hope I explained it properly, is just to take the first step to make sure that it's feasible, physically feasible on the site, financially feasible dollar-wise, and operationally feasible of how they can set up the different bunks, et cetera. So this is for, we don't know because we have to go out for bid, but our guess is 25,000 or less, but there's 1.5 budgeted for the total project.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you said. We're exploring the opportunity. We're trying to save taxpayer dollars instead of jumping in feet first to make sure that this is something we can accomplish and it's right for Beaufort County and
Right.
that area in Beaufort.
Right.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? This will move forward with no objection. Thank you. Oh, let's see. Number 14, recommend approval of a contract award to Beaufort Construction of SC LLC for IFB numbers 052523, Port Royal Public Library Construction Services. Touched on this a little bit earlier. These are about the new improvements that are going to be happening in Port Royal. Were we able to get any pictures of those updates?
Yes, they were included in the.
Right, but that we could put up for the public, if anybody's watching back on it. Perfect. And then I think Eric is going to talk on this one if we could just for a moment. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. As it's already been stated, this is an award of a construction contract to Beaufort Construction. We're asking for $480,000 for the construction budget. There's one other image, if you want to throw that one up, that might be a little prettier. It's kind of a computerized three-dimensional image of the interior of the space after it's upfit. So I'll leave that on the screen while I'm talking. It's approximately 3,200 square feet. It's in the existing building on Port Paris Avenue. This is interior renovations and upfit for the library. And as I mentioned before, we're asking for 480, excuse me. The bid is 445,307. We're asking for the additional contingency to cover any potential change orders. Remodels are usually complicated compared to new construction, so we always want to keep a little contingency in the budget in case we have change orders for that. There was only the one bid. We did review the bid carefully with the design consultants, McMillan, Paston, Smith, to make sure that the price was fair and reasonable and that we were comfortable with the numbers that they were providing, and that we completed that, and we're fine with that. So the recommendation, this comes out of library impact fees, excuse me, and the recommendation is to hire Beaufort Construction in the amount of $445,307 with the established contingency up to $480.
We have any
Happy to answer
questions?
your questions.
Mr. Larson?
Just like, wanted to thank Ms. Dickman and Mr. Chuck for having the vision on this, and I'd like to make a motion to go forward with it.
We have a motion. Second?
I'll second it.
A second. I just want to reiterate that it is coming from the library impact fees. That was a big discussion for us the past year and a half about getting those all signed. So I just wanted to point that out, that the taxpayer money is being used and it is putting to good use, just like we did in Bluffton. And we're doing another one here. And as we look forward to another library coming in the future as well. Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's very good that we are moving to the point where we're getting ready to build this library in the Port Royal area. And Eric, you might not be able to answer this, so Chuck might have to come and answer. I just want to, for the sake of the public and this council, give us an update, if you will, where we are with the CIP feasibility of the Burton Wells library.
I will. Good afternoon. So the Burton Wells complex sits on property that was donated from the federal government. There was an old well network. That's why they call it Burton Wells. And there are deed restrictions that say that it has to be for recreation only. Originally, we discussed that perhaps could be a place to build a library, but when we got into the definition of recreation, libraries, although it has a recreational element, it was determined based on those deed restrictions that a physical library could not be built on that property. So where we are right now, within that R100 district impact fee collection area, we have about 690,000, I think. It's close to that. And that is not enough money to buy a piece of property and build a library anywhere in the county. This particular library opportunity came up. We already own the building. A lot of bang for the buck. A lot of people can get to it by walking, riding, golf carts, what have you. So we brought this project forward so that we can supply what we can and fill the void, the need in that R100 area. And we are currently looking for funding opportunities and a site for that other library in the, I'm going to call it the Burton Wells area. I think it's Highway 17 to Laurel Bay out to Highway 21, all the way to the Broad River. So that's what we're looking at right now as we go year over year into our CIP budgets. We're looking for the funding for a piece of land, and then we would get into the design elements based on, the needs once we secure that piece of property. And then we would look for a bond or something to actually construct that library. So that's where we're at with it.
Okay, just want to make sure we keep it on the radar.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Eric, is there any idea why we only got one bid for this? And is this the same company that redid Bluffton Library?
I am not, I don't know if they're the ones that did the Bluffton Library. That
Okay.
was before my employment. So, sorry, I can't answer that question.
okay.
As far as the competition, we're seeing that now. You're probably seeing several of our bids are coming in with just one bidder. It's not for lack of effort doing the advertising. I do know the procurement office is putting it out on several sources. There's a state listserv, there's several contractor listservs. It's on our website, and we have an extensive list of vendors that are registered with us that get emails from us when projects go out. So it's not from lack of trying. I think it's the economy. It's everybody's busy. It's a supply and demand thing. We have a demand and there's not enough supply to cover everybody. But we are getting one bid. Beaufort Construction is a local firm, a local company, and they're reputable, and they've done several successful projects with us in the past. And as we said, when we only had one, we did make sure that we weren't getting a price that was overinflated due to lack of competition. We were comfortable with what we got.
Thank you.
I think we talked about that a couple months ago, that we're starting to get less bids because there's just so much work to be done. There's only so many crews to go around. Can we move this forward with no objection?
Yes.
So go forward with no objection then. Number 15, recommend approval for interim administrator to execute a contract change order for renovation and expansion of the Bluffton Township Fire Department, Fire District EMS Fire Station number 34 on William Pope Ave, which serves Sun City. Eric, please enlighten us.
Good afternoon again. This is a challenging project. It has been a challenging project. What you have before you is a very extensive packet of support materials with this AIS. And this is for change order number 4, and the amount of the change order is $195,192. We have some funds still left in our contingency, so that's why you see the fiscal impact only being $101,000, because this we have nearly 93 still left in our contingency. But this change order tips the scale to the need to come back to you and ask for a change order. There's a little bit of background here. For the sake of time, I won't read everything, but the project's been ongoing since January 2022. We have had 3 change orders to date that equaled right at $20,000 so far. This change order includes a long litany of things, as you see in the draft documents. Some of them are owner-directed changes. We changed the interior design of the ceiling in the new section from a drop ceiling, a very low-hanging drop ceiling, to going up to a higher ceiling that was sheetrocked in and finished like you probably have in your home. We also added the replacement of the existing roof on the existing part of the building and the exterior painting of that building, so it matches the new construction. We've also found termite damage. We've had trouble with utilities. So there's some changes for sanitary sewer connections, water connections, and electrical changes that had to be made to the drawings due to the electrical service that was able to be provided to us. We had additional site improvements. As we got into it, there was a decision, needed an extra sidewalk to get to this door, that sort of thing. And then there's been some damage, and we will get reimbursed for this, but there's been some damage to the new construction by a subcontractor that is not related to this project. And we are having that repaired, but we will be seeking reimbursement for that part. So that's included in there, but it's a very small amount. One thing I do want to point out to you before I open up for questions, again, I'm not going to read everything in detail. There is a draft change order AIA document G701. You probably see that in the packet. There is a item number 8 on the second page of that document that will be stricken from the final version. unintentional typo that was left in there, but that is something we've negotiated out of this change order. We will not be paying that 21,000. The numbers that are in this document are all correct. It was just that paragraph left out. So I want to make sure that change was made clear. The final version will not include that. And it's highlighted and shown there on the screen for you. At this point, rather than trying to go over this in the 68-page detail that's attached to this, I'll just open up for questions and try to answer them to the best of my ability.
To solve one problem real quickly, probably the biggest thing in here, I believe we have end date.
Yes, that is written in
this.
right below the highlighted paragraph. If you want to, Sarah wants to highlight the next paragraph. Part of this long negotiation of change order number 4, and when I say negotiation, it truly has been a negotiation to get this number down to a dollar amount that we were agreeable to and a time duration that we were agreeable to. We have come to terms with the contractor to complete this project by January. I've lost it now. Here, let me flip to it.
December 27th.
That's what I thought
January
there.
18th.
January 18th was the definitive completion date.
Yes, this is not the right version on the screen. Yeah, the correct date where it says December 27th, that
Right.
actually is January 19th
Correct.
next year.
Yep.
I apologize, there was a lot of back and forth with iterations of this draft on Friday afternoon preparing this packet. And
You're
no
gonna-
fault
it's a lot of
to
moving parts
Sarah,
to
we
it.
got the wrong version in there.
Me and Joe are gonna be there for that ribbon cut and make sure it's done. I'm telling
January
Oh, I'll be
18th
there.
is the
I'll be there.
completion. What dates are correct on the screen? October 12th there's 2 phases. Phase 1 is the new construction. Phase 2, we move the fire department into the new phase, and then we remodel the old section, which is phase 2. So we are intending to be done with phase 1 just in a few weeks from now, and we'll move the department over the weekend into the new space and start renovations, and those renovations should be done by January 19th. And you see there has been some language added to this in the event that does not happen. So we're holding the contractor's feet to the fire to make sure he meets this deadline.
Yes, sir. On that happy note, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Yep,
And
I'll second.
I'll take it. Any objection?
No, get it
No
done.
objection, this will move forward.
Thank you.
Number 16, we have 3 more. We will fly through these 3 real quick. They're pretty self-explanatory. Recommend approval to purchase a 23 Peterbilt 547 vacuum truck. The thing is coming out of stormwater balance, right? It's coming out of stormwater account. It's 570,000. Were we able to get a photo of it quickly? We'll throw that up there, and then I will entertain a motion while she is pulling that up.
I'll make a motion to approve it and move it forward.
A second?
Second.
Fantastic. Give her just 1 second.
Yeah, get that.
And this is about what we're gonna be purchasing. A couple weeks ago, when we had some of these meetings, we threw up some of the things that we were actually purchasing so the public can see it. A lot of people have come back saying they saw it and they looked at it and had no clue what they were talking about until we showed it. So I just wanna thank the staff for actually, pulling this stuff up at their request. I know it's tedious, but the public does notice and I appreciate it. Can this move forward with no objection?
Yes.
This will move forward with no objection as well. Number 17, recommend approval of an ordinance authorizing the interim county administrator to enter into a lease agreement for real property located at 30 Hunter Road with Edison Ford Incorporation. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, and
How are
thank
you,
you
John?
for entertaining this. Edison Ford is a contractor who we just awarded the contract for the first phase of the terminal building at Hilton Head Island Airport. This building is one that we purchased a couple of years ago for this overall project at the airport, and it happens to be located immediately adjacent to the terminal, so it's a perfect place to put the contractor. Plenty of space for them to operate with administrative space and some secure warehouse space in the back, which is beneficial. And it ends up generating revenue for the airport.
Can I entertain a motion?
Can I motion that one for you?
Yes, sir, you may.
Thank you.
A second?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Second, yep.
Thank you, Mr. McKellen. Any objection or questions to this? This will move forward with no objection. Number 18, recommend approval and ordinance authorizing the interim county administrator to enter into a lease agreement for real property located at 39 Airport Circle with High Tide Aviation Scenic Tours.
Okay, this is moving north of the Broad to Beaufort Executive. And I think we recently had an operating agreement approved to have High Tide come into town. They operate some tour businesses in North Carolina and in Georgia, and they saw this as a great sweet spot in the middle to operate some aerial tours with a historic component to it. So a very interesting new spin to it. But we've renovated a little bit of space inside the airport and created a small office for them. Again, this is a revenue generator for the airport, so we bring it forward to you for consideration.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Looking forward to this. Move forward with no objection.
Thank you.
And that is our last item on the agenda. Again, I just wanted to, I know some of these meetings go long, and they're very tedious. This is part of the reason when we get to county council, sometimes you see things come up and they go so quickly is because we do have these discussions. So I encourage the public to, if they have questions, email us, reach out to us, or go back and watch the committee meetings, so we can all stay educated and informed. Sarah and staff, I just want to thank you guys. I'm really bad with names. Anybody can tell you all that. So Sarah's great and always puts in there for me the names, who's coming up, so I can keep things straight for everyone. But I appreciate you guys coming today, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Oh, how come we don't do that?